Have you ever been curious about what a victory garden is? Because I know a lot of you out there may just be looking to do something while you're stuck at home. Isn't that what we're all doing these days now? But today I'm going to actually go over how to get started with the garden. Basically, what is a victory garden, and also just some simple ways that you can get started with vegetable gardening. So stick around. Hi, this is Jeremy Stark here from Green Thumb Gardener, here to give you some tips, tutorials, and reviews for all your gardening needs. Like I said, today we're going to go over very simple ways on how to get started with the victory garden. Maybe you heard of that term before. It's actually from the turn of the century, kind of World War I, World War II times. A lot of different countries around the world, they actually kind of did their part during that period where they would kind of produce their own food. So to speak, everybody had a particular garden. It was a really big push back then. You know, in today's times, I'm pretty confident that our food chain supply is not going to be as low as it was back then. But still, you might be bored. You might be looking for something to do. You may have just pondered around with gardening. You might have a plant or two in your house. So I'm going to actually show you how to get started in your garden outside today. First, before we get started, if you could, please give us a green thumbs up. It really helps to show that we're doing a good job with this video. I mean, hopefully we're doing something good for you. Also, if you could, hit that subscribe button down below. I think it's over there somewhere. I always forget where it is. But that way there, you can get all the latest videos that we do have. We're actually going to be doing a Victory Garden Series 2. We're going to just go over just some basic plants that you can get started with and you can start planting in your garden. Even if you have very little experience, there are going to be some really easy stuff that you can do. Let's get right into it. So a victory garden is one of the things that happened during the turn of the century. I would say around World War I, World War II, right in that era right there. There was a big push for actually growing your own food to kind of help supplement the food at the time. I guess there was some shortage there, and it was actually a big movement. There was lots of advertisings for it. The gardening companies at the time were also, displaying everything. There was even a push by the different governments in the different countries. Did a few different things at the time, which was really good for gardening in general. Is it got a lot of people who were not interested in gardening kind of interested into it at that point. They feel like they had some type of hobby that they could do to take away to boost up their morale that they had during that time. And it also really did help to kind of produce a little bit of food for some of the folks that may have needed it at that time. Nowadays, our food supply is, so far it's good. Right now, I'm filming this during the time when we had the coronavirus in actually April of 2020. So at this time, I'm pretty confident in our food chain supply. But I've always been a gardener, and I just love to get other people interested in gardening, and just show them what they're in store for, because it really does help with lots of different things. It can actually help with gardening. Helps with stress, to reduce the stress. It kind of builds your morale up. It's also good for a little bit of exercise and movement, because you're actually moving around, moving things around. You might be digging in the garden, might be pulling some weeds out. And it just gives you something to look forward to. During the day, while I'm working, I might get a little distracted here, but then I can go out to my garden and pick a few weeds out, or I can check on something, or water it, or do whatever I need to do, or even pick some of it to harvest. So it really does boost your morale. If you're stuck at home, you don't have anything to do with the kids, this is also a great activity for the kids. So I really like the whole Victory Garden piece of it, because it does have like a morale boosting thing. And if you really look at some of the old cartoons and some of the different advertisements that they had out there at the time, it's pretty unique to see the history of it. So I really wanted to get simple. I wanted to just, if you've never done any garden before, you're not sure what a victory garden is, it's really simple. It's just planting something that you can check on, that you can look forward to. It's something to do and to pass the time away. have some fun. So it really isn't, there's no like one vegetable you have to plant to have a victory garden. You can actually have, if you're just starting a garden, probably the best vegetable to start with is actually lettuce. Lettuce is really super easy to grow. It's something that it's very forgiving, and you can also grow it in just pretty much any climate. I've actually grown it indoors. I've grown it in the winter time with there's snow on the ground. I've grown it during the summer. So it's really one of those versatile, kind of easy plants that you can start out with if you've never done gardening before. But you can really get creative. You know, you can grow tomatoes, you can grow cucumbers, whatever it is that you want to get started. And I know you might be asking, well, I live in an apartment, or you know, I don't have a huge space or a big, huge garden. So I'm going to go over the different types of gardening that you could do with, you know, for a victory garden. So you can get really simple. You can have just the regular pots that you would find at the store. You know, they could be just any size. You know, if you're planting lettuce, that's really, you know, any kind of container, a really small container, and you can get them as simple as, you know, for $5 to $10. The other thing I really love is I have a bunch of them, and you can find these usually at bakeries, and you know, maybe like a bagel shop or something will have them. But they're the food grade 5-gallon bucket containers. Those are perfect for getting started, because you can get them for free most of the time. They're really super easy to work with. You may have to drill a few holes in the bottom of it, but as long as they're food grade, you can actually grow food, you know, in there, and your plants will be safe with that. So I'm going to go over some of the part of the series is actually going to include growing some stuff in 5-gallon. But if you don't have the 5-gallon bucket containers, you can just have, you know, regular containers. So getting started anywhere, whether it's an apartment or anything, it's really super easy to do if you just have containers. I love it. I have a raised bed. I have a traditional garden, kind of a raised bed hybrid traditional garden. But I have many containers too. I actually have I'll put a link in the show notes, but I have these bags, not cotton, but they're like these like woven bags that you can actually put dirt in, and they fold up, and they're really small, so you can have them shipped to you pretty easily. The other type of garden is more of your traditional one, where you basically just have, you know, a piece of land, and you just, you know, if you clear it out basically. So if there's any bushes or grass, you want to cut into the soil. Now, there's a couple of drawbacks with doing that. You may not have the best soil to work with in there. It would be ideal if you kind of did this in advance to see what kind of soil you do have. You can also add to the soil by adding different amendments, and maybe some manure, maybe add a little bit of organic matter in there to make it a little bit better. So there's a little bit more preparation involved in that. It's not something that you can't do in one season, but your results are going to vary. So it would be good. There's several different ways to approach it. When you're doing that, you can do layer gardening, where you would just lay over on top of it. You would put manure and all these other kind of amendments on there. Some will also just actually plow right into the soil, and if you have decent soil, then you can pretty much grow right away. But here in the South, it's a little difficult because a lot of the soil here is clay, so it's not very conducive to growing things. So if you live in the South and you have some very heavy clay soil, you may have to kind of amend it. And that's why container gardening is really good, because you can get that ready, and then you can maybe plant a little bit later after it's had some time to, you know, to build up some of the good soil in there. But that's really, you know, traditional gardening is, you know, it is something to do. I mean, like I said, I have a plot that I do, you know, plant stuff in. But the other, the third type of gardening is actually a raised bed gardening. This one is fantastic because you can get started right away, and you can use it, and you can plant stuff and grow stuff right away in this. The only drawback is that you have to add your own soil in there. So any kind of raised bed, and I'll put you know, check on the above here. I'm going to show you a cinder block raised bed garden that I use. I love it. But you can build any kind of simple one out of wood. You can do it out of stone. You can do it, you know, with bricks, or you can do it with cinder blocks. Any of those things will work for a raised bed, so you can get as fancy as you really want with it. But the other thing that you're going to need to bring in is you're going to have to bring in some a good mixture of different manure and some compost and maybe some other amendments to the soil. So you want to have in there, the soil is going to have to be nice and loose and frilly. So maybe mix it with a little bit of topsoil. You can add some peat moss or coconut coir to kind of build up that, or if you have a lot of compost is really something I would recommend. And I would get a mixture of different compost between mushroom compost, maybe some cow manure, maybe some chicken manure, just different types of compost that you can get in there is better. I want to just stick with one of them. I would add in as much as you can. And usually a good ratio is, I would say, a third of maybe third to a half of compost to topsoil and other things. But just make sure that you read the package and where you're getting your stuff from so that you know that it's from a good, viable source. But with the raised bed, like I said, you can get started right away. You can, as soon as you get everything situated in your raised bed garden, you can plant right away in there. And I've had much success with it. And the best thing is that it gets better and better every year as you add more and more organic matter to it, as you add more manure, some compost that you can build, and you're building up the soil, because that's really what gardening is all about. That's how you're gonna get a victory, is by actually focusing on your soil. It's not necessarily planting the vegetables and everything. It's the soil is what brings up the vegetables. It's what feeds it. It's alive. I mean, it's really alive in there. So getting your soils right is probably the #1 tip that I can give you guys. Some other tips for success is just really start small. Like I said, get a little container. Look at some of the other videos that I'm going to have in this series, and you're going to see that I'm taking just normal things that you can get around your house and then throwing in some dirt in there. Nothing too complicated, and that way there you can get started right away and you're off to the races, And then you'll be having some fresh salad for your salad bowl in no time. Really just start simple. Get something that's really simple to do. Don't make it too complicated. And then as you build your confidence in that, then you can start trying other things, And that's the other thing about gardening. The other tip I can really give you is that this is kind of like a science experiment sometimes. I mean, who doesn't love science? But really, I mess things up all the time in the garden. I'm not a perfect gardener. I've been gardening for, 25, 30 years almost, and I mess stuff up all the time. But the thing is I just get right back in there, get my hands dirty again, and then I get started again. And then next year I got my notes and I know exactly what I did wrong, and I try not to make the same mistake twice again. But it happens, I mean, you're also competing against Mother Nature, so you have no control over some of the things, but you do have control over some things. So really just try to keep control of what you have in there. So hopefully this has really been, I've given you something to get started with, so you can have a little victory in your garden here. But I really would love to just know, if you guys get started, where you guys are at in your journey with gardening. If you're just getting started, you're not really sure, if you're expert gardener, who knows? Just put a comment down below and let me know, where you are in your gardening journey. Also, if you could, please give us a green thumbs up. Really helps if this video has been really helpful for you, to just show your love and just kind of spread it around. Maybe share this video too with all your friends, who knows. Also, please hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to be making lots of videos right now. I'm going to be doing a little series on Victory Garden, just kind of little tips and everything for you on specific plants. So you'll get the notice anytime that I post a new one right here. You'll get notified of it. And I'll see you in the next video.